Hello and welcome. I'm Tanya Fong, and I'm one of the lead trainers at the Australian Academy of Hypnosis. And if you haven't watched one of my episodes before, I do episodes with some of my graduates from around Australia and New Zealand, and also some of my private clients. And they share some of their very personal stories and some of their journeys into how they found hypnotherapy. And so today I'm joined by a very, very good friend of mine and my husband Paul's, Palmer. And Palmer is joining me today all the way from New Zealand. And Palmer has agreed to come on and share his very personal story and how he found hypnotherapy and how hypnotherapy has changed his life. So I'm really excited for you to listen to Palmer's story today. I think you're going to get a lot out of it and hear some of Palmer's passions and what he wants to do with this in the future. So I'm going to welcome Palmer on now. I've got him on the line with me now. Welcome, Palmer. I've known Palmer for many, many years. In fact, since I was about 18 years of age. So Palmer is a very, very good friend, family friend of ours. And in fact, my husband, Paul, has known him for even longer. And so you're going to get to hear a lot about Palmer's story of where he's come from, some of the things that he's realised over that time. And I'm just really excited for you to be able to hear this story because this is going to impact a lot of people. So welcome, Palmer. Thank you for coming on the line with me today.
Thank you. No worries. Thank you for the invite and opportunity to join this podcast. Bit different, but I'm open to it. So yeah, I'm keen to go.
Yeah, perfect. And Palmer's joining us all the way from New Zealand today. So Palmer's one of our graduates in New Zealand, and we'll go into a bit more depth about that as we start to move through his journey. So I think, Palmer, where we'll start is a little bit about your history, if that's okay.
Okay. So I'm originally from the Cook Islands. When my younger sister was born, we came to New Zealand because she was sick. So quite early on, probably early 70s, my family and I, my sister and parents, we settled in Auckland. Like most, Pacific Island people coming to a new country, trying to, find a better life, it was quite a struggle to start off with.
Yeah.
And I guess as time went on, just those pressures of trying to understand the ways of New Zealand, because it's quite different from the ways of the Pacific and how people live their lives in the Pacific. But I think probably around the time where I was looking at going to school, some things were starting to unravel in terms of my parents and their relationship. So that was early 70s, and not long after that, my parents ended up splitting up. So for us, the kids, by that time there was four of us, a fifth one on the way, and pretty tough living, because dad was a solo parent and he was trying to figure things out. So, and I guess for me, a lot of the things that I experienced, or a lot of things I was trying to handle, was, through that childhood time, trying to understand why my parents had left, and, a bit of anger built, especially when I got into my teenage years. So, so starting to sort of run amok a little when I was about 14, 15, and ran away from home. Started hanging out with the wrong people, and I just had time in my life then was I better do something different, or else I'm gonna end up in a bad place, possibly jail, gangs, or even worse. So so very early on, when I could, I tried to join some well-established organisation. Firstly, the police. I was too young. So I went up the road, and I ended up joining the army. And recruited as a 17-year-old young soldier into the New Zealand Army. So that was the start, I guess, of the early days. but a lot of issues were sort of already in place. And I guess as a young adult, I was trying to run away from them. And try and hide in the military system. For a time it worked, but then just that environment itself, it had its own issues in terms of, I guess the biggest one was drinking. Drinking and that sort of culture quite harmful. And as you know, especially as young lads going into the army, drinking, venting the wrong way, and potentially getting yourself into strife. Fortunately, I didn't get into too much trouble. That's not to say I didn't get into trouble, but some other issues came out during that time as well. So
Okay. And I suppose at that time, I mean, you didn't realize how your childhood upbringing and different things that you'd seen and heard, etc., in your childhood were going to affect you moving on into your life.
I think the hardest thing I struggled with was when my mother left. I was 9 years old when she left, and I remember trying to figure out, was it something that I'd done? I remember the times that I'd be upset and crying, with my sister and trying to figure out when Mum was going to come back. So that carried on for a long time. Our mother tried to come back into that family dynamic, but because my father's drinking was still an issue, there was issues around sort of the family violence and alcohol, so it just never really worked. And I guess when I look at it now, Mum leaving was the best option for her because it was safer for her. And I'm glad that she did leave when she did. But now they have an okay relationship. It's not that they want to move in together, but for me that's where things really started. So just feeling, I guess, neglected firstly from Mum, but not really understanding why. And then Dad trying to look after us and look after us the way he thought was right, which by today's standards is not. And you'd probably get locked up for some of the things he did during our upbringing. But I don't hold any resentments for the way he brought us up. I'm just grateful that he kept us together, and he did the best he could. So I'll always be grateful for my father for that.
And that's it. We all do the best that we can with what we know. There's only so much we know, and so we can't beat ourselves up about mistakes that we've made or anything like that.
And that was one of the things I didn't quite understand was, even from a young age, even though I wasn't fully aware of it, I was beating myself up because of something. I was beating myself up because Mum left. I'm beating myself up because I can't look after my brothers and sisters better. So there's just this constant internal battle that I didn't do enough. I wasn't good enough. And that stuck with me. I'm in my 50s, mid 50s now. And it wasn't until I spent that time with you guys when I did my course in June that things started to come to the surface, and there was meaning behind some of the things that happened in my life. I'm missing a big step here, because from my childhood and when I joined the army, I went into relationships as well. So the way that I learnt this is how a boyfriend, girlfriend, father, husband is supposed to be from my father, I learnt that wasn't the way. But again, I didn't understand, and I lost control of the relationship with my kid's mother. So and just trying to put it all in order at the same time, because I'm the oldest in the family, trying to keep the family dynamic together, and trying to make sure that the family's looked after and my parents are looked after. And at one point, it just became too much. Just all these things happening all at once, and it just felt that I couldn't get ahead.
Yep.
So I
Okay.
think it's one time you and Paul visited New Zealand a good couple, 3 years ago, and we started talking about that you were, having a look at this hypnotherapy thing. At first, I didn't think too much of it, but it just happened to coincide with all these things sort of coming to a head, and you and Paul talking about hypnotherapy, and so that sort of perked up my interest, and I guess that's when the hypnotherapy journey started for me.
Yeah, cool. So there's a lot more to your story that I want to explore a little bit further if we can,
Yeah,
because I know you've got a real passion around helping men. And we're going to go into a bit more about what that looks like for you. But I thought what we could do is go back into when you were in the army and talk
yeah.
to me about what sort of person you had to be in the army as a man in the army.
Oh, yeah. So it was quite tough. Well, I thought it was quite tough. I was a young, naive 17-year-old, wet behind the ears, knew nothing. And when I joined, there were a lot of Vietnam vets still around. So it's sort of the end stages, well, of the Vietnam War, basically. So a lot of our instructors were Vietnam veterans, very, very tough, very hard men.
Yeah,
Um,
wow.
and just, when you look at some of those movies and they're shouting and yelling at you and swearing at you, that's what it was like when I joined. I'd been called names that I'd never been, called before. And I remember when I went home on mid-basic leave. So I think the basic was 10 weeks. I can't remember, 10 weeks or 12 weeks.
Yep.
Halfway through, you get to go home on leave. And I said to my dad that I didn't want to go back. And he asked me why. And I said, because they're yelling and swearing, and, they don't support you and all this sort of stuff. And he said to me, look, that's what they're trying to do. They're trying to break you down in that first half. Once you come back, then they'll, build you up and support you and do all the things that they need to do to, develop a good soldier.
Yep.
And true to his word, I went back, and that's exactly what happened. So as I developed my career, there was still that sort of tough, undertone, where soldiers were hard and the instructors were tougher, and I developed that as well. So I became one of those people that I didn't like. So it was very much a mentality of, you harden up, or someone's going to sort you out, or you get out, or but you can't be part of this group if you're not tough enough. So so that was my environment, and when I look at it now, I think to myself, unfortunately, I became that person that I didn't like.
Yep.
Yeah. Um,
But it was
and
just
then,
because of all your surroundings and what you were being
yeah,
taught, and yep, it molds us, eh?
absolutely. Well, yeah, that was the norm. That was the environment. Everyone was the same. So, so I thought that was the norm, and that's what I did. So when I left the army, that stuck with me. So,
Yep.
quite direct. Um, I guess scary to a lot of people. I remember a friend, and I started teaching. I got into the dive industry, and I started teaching in the dive industry, and she said to me, really lovingly and supportive, she goes, Palmer, you need to chill out, because you just come out so direct and so forceful, and some people, don't respond very well to that. So it made me think, and I knew I'd change that,
Yep.
which I started doing by reading a few books and trying to understand a little bit more about, um, normal human behavior, I guess.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, of
So,
course. Okay, so coming out of the army, having this hard persona, pretty much harden up, or you just shit, really, is how you felt. How did
yeah.
that affect your relationships with your children, partners, etc., and just the way that you lived your daily life?
Um, yeah, I didn't know that there was any other way.
Yep.
I thought how I was just how I was, and people would accept it. I never physically harmed any of my family, but I guess the emotional side of things was really tough. Yeah, it's just, I can handle it. Why can't you handle it?
Yep.
Why can't you take ownership of your feelings or whatever? It's not my responsibility. Take ownership of it. Don't talk to me about it. I don't want to hear about it. And, that sort of thing.
Yep.
So, yeah, I don't know how I came out of that. I think it's just time,
Yep.
time. I went away to a health resort in Thailand, and that was an awesome experience because that allowed me to take a step back and look at myself even more,
Yep.
and realize how the perception of aggression was obvious to others and not to me. And the darkness that sort of surrounded me at that time as well. Quite often when I, was invited to talk about something or share in a group, I didn't know it then, but it was generally quite dark and negative. And, I wasn't aware of that until more recently. And I'm thinking back to all these times where I've shared in groups. And I think, man, it's no wonder I had some of the issues that I had along the way. There's, a lot of that stuff stuck with me. So,
Yep.
yeah, I didn't know how to deal with it. I wasn't even aware that that's how I was. Yeah, until we started doing the training together.
Yep.
Mm.
And that's it. And for those people listening at the moment, this is how it works. We are molded, our brains are wired a particular way depending on our upbringing from being a child, 0 to 7, and then the different traumas, the different ways we're molded after that molds
Mm.
us into the adult that we become. But we
Yeah,
don't realize exactly what that adult is because to
yeah,
us, that's normal. That
yeah,
becomes our normal. And so
yeah,
everyone else around us who's got a problem with that, it's sort of like, but what's your problem? This is who I am, sort of thing. This is how I'm meant to be.
yeah, yeah. And it wasn't really obvious until I came away from that health resort, and the session, the session that I did in June with you guys, where I took a step back and I reflected on things that have happened.
Yep.
And I thought to myself, when I came back from that course, I was so excited, highly motivated, a completely different person. I wanted to come back to New Zealand and share it with everyone, as many people as I could.
Yep.
But I spoke to you and Paulie about it. That I guess most blokes, but Kiwis are quite stoic and they don't like to talk about things, especially when it involves emotions and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
So that was one of the challenges that I was aware of, and yeah, it pretty much is the way it is. People don't like sharing. People sort of get excited about what I've done, but when it comes to looking into hypnotherapy or experiencing it themselves, it's for them. It's the unknown.
Yep.
Um, it's the thought that will take control, or the hypnotherapist will take control of their brain and control
Yep.
their lives from there. But yeah, so I guess for me, it's just sort of, voicing it and letting others know that it's not like that. I know for a fact, I haven't got any, data to back it up, but I know for a fact there's a lot of people out there who are sick, who
Yep.
need health, who need help, and who just need a little bit of a reset and, I guess, um, look into themselves through hypnotherapy.
Yep.
And that's what I found. So, yeah, after that, I was quite clear in my intent, what I was going to do moving forward. I'm still got a a few steps to work through before I get to that final destination. But I know at least now I've got a plan of, what that's going to look like.
Yeah, perfect. So Palmer's just said that he was on the course with us last year in June, so June 2023. Palmer flew over from New Zealand to Australia, to Melbourne, to do our level 1 certificate of clinical hypnotherapy and psychotherapy. And you all know already that Paul and I know Palmer really, really well. And we've also watched Palmer's journey over the years as well. So Palmer has also got training as a trainer. So he was helping us also to sort of critique the course that we were delivering and make sure that it was easy for people to understand, that we were flowing people through a process and all of that sort of stuff as well, Palmer, eh?
Yeah. That I thought that was a little contribution, but if I could help in that way, that was awesome.
It was amazing.
Yeah. And the irony of that was initially I was coming over thinking that I'm going to be a client of yours and I'm going to get, some treatment from you.
Yep.
But after the week's training, I was so excited with that experience that more people needed to know about it. More people, needed that guidance and assistance.
Yep.
So, yeah.
Yeah. And so for those people out there listening at the moment, Palmer, who really feel a deep calling in themselves that they want to do something to help others, but they really don't understand this whole hypnotherapy thing. You came into the course with the same sort of idea, right? You really didn't understand it yourself. You just knew that there was some calling in you that, one, you needed to learn this, whatever this was, and two, this was your journey to be able to start to help people in the way that you wanted to do it.
Yeah. I think first up it was for help.
Yep.
So I was quietly, screaming to myself, I need help, but I didn't know where to source that help from. But after talking to you and Paul for a bit, and journeys back to certain times in your life and trying to correct that stuff, it got me interested. So when I was able to experience that with you in that group session, that was a major change for me. That was amazing. It was I just felt like a weight had been lifted off me, and I was on a high for a long time after that. And I thought to myself, I need to be able to somehow learn more and offer this so that other people can feel that same experience or feel that same feeling that I had. The lifting of the weight was unbelievable.
Yep. So coming onto that course, you'd never been hypnotized before, correct?
I was hypnotized earlier. Again, I was really skeptical about it. When I think about it now, I don't think anything really happened or changed because I think my mind wasn't ready for it then.
Yep.
So So I think true hypnosis was that week I spent in Melbourne with you guys.
Yep. And so your first experience of it was as we started to hypnotize you guys as a group. That was sort of your very first experience of it. And then, because what Paul and I felt is, rather than me just grab you as a personal client and you just do some personal hypnotherapy with me to sort yourself out, we really felt like if you could understand the process of this skill set and learn it for yourself, it would become so much more empowering when you went actually through that healing journey yourself. Would you agree?
Yeah, absolutely. And as you mentioned, with a trainer background, when you learn the first steps, and then you get someone demonstrates the first part of whatever it is you want to do, and then you get an opportunity to practice that. And when you can keep doing that and layering it, especially for a person that's trying to learn hypnotherapy, those developmental stages, great. The speaker you had yesterday, the MMA guy, I've forgotten his name, sorry.
Josh.
But Josh?
Yep.
Yeah. So he said, just being able to observe each stage being done over the the 4 days, and then on the 5th day putting it all together, it just gives so much confidence for the practitioner. I guess to give them assurances that you can't really balls it up.
Yeah.
Because you've had lots of repetition and you get feedback, active feedback, while you're going through your session with your client, student client. So that interaction was great. To see it, to practice it, to do it, receive feedback, then to do it again. To me, it makes sense.
Yep. And the way we get over the fear of people going through that is we always just tell you, look, you're just practicing. No big deal.
Yeah.
You're just practicing. And if you happen to get a result, bonus. But at
Yeah.
the end of the day, you're just practicing. You're just learning this skill. And the results that came out of those sessions that you guys did with each other was just phenomenal.
Yeah. It was amazing that we, the students, were getting results with our trainee students. So that whole experience was great, and so keen to get back.
Yeah, awesome. So, as Palmer's been saying, he volunteered to be, I suppose you'd say, my demonstration client that I demonstrated a full session with, including the mesmerism, magnetism, and energy healing. And I knew that Palmer already wanted some one-on-one help. So he was an absolute perfect, what would you say, demonstration client for me to be able to demonstrate this to the students. So talk to everybody now, Palmer, about, you don't have to go into too much depth about what we dealt with as such, but
Yeah.
just what your whole experience was of that, and then basically what the outcome and the transformation was after that.
Yeah. So I'd been, carrying, I guess, the load of the family, and thinking about all the things I could have done right and I didn't, and the things that went great, and so I had direction. I wanted to move forward. I wanted to be, successful in what I did. But there's this thing behind me, and it's the family. It's all the things that I could have done better, just in the back of my mind. And I remember saying to you, Tanya, that it was like the ball and chain.
Yep.
I get to a point, and then this ball and chain would hold me back, and I couldn't move forward any further. I remember you took me into hypnosis, and we did a train journey back in time, and that was powerful. It was an emotional session. What was the? It wasn't like I was weeping. I was in hypnosis, and tears were flowing.
Yep.
But it was like, I guess, tears of relief that I could go back and try and deal with some of the issues that had concerned me over the years. And then when we came back and then went to the future, so that experience was just a massive load off for that moment. But what I've also come to realize as well, part of that ball and chain is me hanging on to some of that stuff, hanging on to the anger, the resentment, trying to blame someone else for why things, happened the way they did.
Yep.
So I think I've dealt with that. That's all in the past now. I've got a clear path for my future and
Yep.
what that's going to look like. So that's where all my passion and my drive is at the moment, is for taking care of the next step, and the next step, to get to future state, where I want to end up. So and that session cleared the pathway for me.
Yeah, cool.
So it allowed me to leave the past behind. It allowed me to see that part of the problem was the stuff that I was holding on to. And for me, on reflection, to go, right, so that's done, I can leave that as well. I focus on the things of the future and positivity and how I'm going to get there. And so that's what a lot of my daily focus is on, is, being positive about, everything, being grateful for everything. Yeah.
So been a massive mindset shift.
Oh, 100%.
Yeah.
A completely different person. In fact, when I came back to New Zealand, I caught up with some friends. They even said that I was different, and we talked about this as well. So we talked about when people can sense change, and there's a frequency change, they start to go weird, or they start to do things to disrupt the your pathway. And I found that.
Yep.
I found that, and I found that people were trying to, I guess, bring me back down,
Yep.
take me off this high. So luckily we talked about it, because I recognized it straight away. And then when I sensed, these little triggers going off, I thought, well, okay, I know where I stand here. And I just never put myself in that situation, or I don't put myself in those situations.
Yep. Yeah. Awesome. And also the energy healing that you experienced at the end of the session, that was the first time that you'd experienced anything like that before?
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, there's a lot of firsts, actually. So I just came out of it. I felt like I was on top of the world. And I was like that for months.
Yep.
Months. There's nothing that could get me down. I was just, in a really, really positive, happy mood. Yeah, that carried on for months.
Yeah. Amazing. Awesome.
Yeah.
And so plan moving forward for you is what?
I don't know. I'm in a bit of a crossroads at the moment.
Okay.
So I know at some point I'd like to be practicing hypnotherapist.
Yep.
So my growth, there's a lot more I need to do in terms of developing and getting to that point where I can practice, and hopefully it becomes my my normal job, because I know there is a lot of people out there that need help, and it's just trying to figure out how to get them to come.
Yep.
But yeah, I've got time to work these things out. I've got a few other things along the way. Yeah. So
it's like watch this space with Palmer.
absolutely. And I'll catch up with you guys. Have you got a diploma course in August?
Yes, we have end of August in the city.
All right. So yeah, I'll see what the work schedule looks like. But
Yep.
If it's not that one, it'll definitely be one after it or something like that. But yeah, my desire for growth in the hypnotherapy space is pretty strong.
Yeah, cool.
Yeah.
And like I've told you, once you've done that diploma course and you've learnt that next level of skill set, you've learnt the energy healing, you'll be ready to roll.
Yeah.
You'll be completely ready to roll. You know how to hypnotize people now already, but just taking it to that next level now, not just the foundational stuff, actually taking it to that next level will just allow you to launch into whatever it is that you want to do.
Yeah. Well, I actually had a plan, and I think I discussed it with you and Paul when I was there, was when I, before I got to Melbourne, I said, right, I'm going to come back, do this course, come back. I've already got 10 potential clients lined up, and I'll go and talk to them and see if they're good to go. As soon as I got back, there was no one. No, everyone's really, really reluctant. So, yeah. So I'm looking forward to that next stage.
Yeah. And that's why we're doing this podcast. That's what it's all about. It's to remove the fear. It's to remove the stigmatism. It's to remove the negativity, and to just let people know that if they need some help, this can help them.
Yeah. 100%. I've experienced that myself, and I can, definitely say I'm in a much happier space than where I have been before.
Yep.
Mm.
Yeah. Perfect. So it's going to be really exciting to see your journey moving forward. Like I said, we've got diploma happening in Melbourne in end of August, and then we've got a diploma in Perth in November as well.
Okay.
So you've got sort of two options there that you could look at.
Yep. No,
And
that,
both of those are going to be fantastic courses. We've got some fantastic people coming through on those courses.
awesome.
Yeah.
Awesome. I look forward to either one. I think November might work out better, actually.
Yeah, I was wondering that with Perth and stuff.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
Okay, well, I'll send you
Cool.
the dates for that so that you can have a look.
Yeah. We'll play it by ear. But
Yeah.
yeah, I'm keen for the
At
next
least you
step.
know that's the two that we've got going this year. So whenever you're ready, I mean, you do everything in your timing when it feels right for you.
Okay. Yeah. All right. Sweet.
So is there anything else you sort of wanted to share before we sort of start to bring it to a close today, Palmer?
No, I don't normally speak this long, so I've sort of run out of things to say. Oh, yeah. Oh, no.
I can see
No,
the
it's all good.
puppies in the background. They're starting to show their little heads.
Yeah.
Look
They're
at these
wondering. Yeah.
guys.
So two of
What's
them
their names,
sisters.
Palmer?
The one in front, that's Willow, and the one
Willow,
in the background, that she's Seba.
Willow and Seba. And how old are they?
About 15, 16 months.
Beautiful. Hello.
Willow wants to get well involved.
Hello, Willow.
She's the shy one, the cautious one. This one is the adventurous, naughty one.
Oh, very cute. And so they're Palmer's babies.
Yeah. Yeah, they
Oh,
keep us pretty
amazing.
busy.
Yeah.
All right.
Awesome. Well, I think we'll bring it to a close then. But
Okay.
just before we do, I just let everybody know that if Palmer's stories really impacted you, and maybe you're a male out there that is feeling like because of your upbringing that you've had to push down your emotions and you just don't want to do that anymore. You want to be set free. Maybe you've got that ball and chain like Palmer's had most of his life. He's felt that ball and chain just pulling him back every time he tries to move forward. This is why we're doing these talks, so that you can understand that there is help out there and that this help through hypnotherapy happens quite quickly. This is not something that drags out. Yeah, sometimes it's one session, sometimes it's four, and you start to feel better and you start to be able to move forward in your life in different ways. So I want to thank you all for watching the podcast today, watching the episode with Palmer, joining me all the way from New Zealand. And if you want to learn the skill set that Palmer's learned, well, then you just need to get hold of us. We've got courses operating all over Australia, in Melbourne, Sydney, Perth, and also Brisbane this year. And so you can jump on our website, the Australian Academy of Hypnosis.com, and that will show you where the courses are being held for this year, or otherwise just get hold of me and I'll give you a call and have a chat. So if you've liked what you've heard today, I just encourage you to like, subscribe, turn on your notifications, because we're going to be uploading a new episode of these talks with real people from New Zealand and Australia every single week. So I want to thank you, Palmer, for joining me today.
Thank you. Thank you
Thank you
for
so
allowing me
much.
to be part of it.
Yeah, thank you for sharing your story, for just opening up and just letting people know that there is help.
Yeah,
Yeah.
definitely. All
And
right,
you can
awesome.
start to do the things in your life that you want to do.
Yeah. Okay,
Awesome.
thank you.
All right. See you, Palmer.
All right, bye-bye.
Bye.